She told me she was doing something wonderful for her sister. She said it as if she were giving away a kidney or baking a birthday cake. No discussion. No questions. Just a decision she made behind my back. We had 3 children. A whole life. And overnight, I became an outsider in my own marriage. What followed wasn't just betrayal, it was a slow-motion disaster made up of lies, guilt, family drama, and a courtroom finale that left her broken and me with the pieces of a life I never agreed to. This isn't just a story about a woman who chose someone else's future over her family. This is a story about what happens when a man says, enough. And he means it. Let's go back to the beginning of the story. I still remember the exact moment things started falling apart. We were sitting on the couch, the kind of lazy Tuesday where you've already eaten, the kids are in bed, and you're just waiting for the day to end. I was tired. Work had kicked my butt. Vanessa was sitting cross-legged, glued to her phone like always, scrolling with that absent-minded smile she wears when she's reading stuff that only she finds funny. I didn't think anything of it at first. This was normal. She's always on her phone. Yoga videos, design blogs, memes from Maya, you name it. Then, without so much as looking up from the screen, she said it. I've been thinking of doing something really important for Maya. I paused the documentary because I figured maybe she wanted to have a real conversation. Rare these days, but still appreciated. Instead, she looked up, tucked a strand of her perfect blonde highlighted hair behind her ear, and said it like she was ordering takeout. I'm going to be her surrogate. I blinked. I laughed. I actually laughed. Not a belly laugh, more like a quick confused chuckle, like, huh, okay, what are you really talking about? But she wasn't joking. Her face didn't change. She just nodded and went. Maya and I are identical, so it's basically like she's carrying her own baby. It's the most natural thing in the world. Now, let me just pause for a second here. This wasn't a minor thing. This wasn't, hey, I'm changing my hair color, or let's get a new couch. This was my wife, the mother of my 3 kids, casually telling me she's going to carry another man's child for her sister and her brother-in-law. And she said it like I was supposed to be proud of her. My brain kind of short-circuited. I stared at her for a few seconds too long, trying to figure out if this was one of those weird experiments she sometimes reads about online. Like, what would you do if your spouse told you something wild just to test your reaction? But no, she was serious. I managed to say, wait, you mean like, actually carry their baby? She nodded again, and her smile got even bigger. Yeah, Maya and Tyrell have been trying for years, you know that. IVF didn't work, and adoption's been impossible. This just makes sense. I sat up straight, remote still in my hand. Vanessa, when did you decide this? She gave a little shrug, totally unfazed. We've been talking about it for a few weeks. I wasn't sure at first, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt right. I just stared. For weeks? They'd been planning this for weeks, and this was the first time I was hearing about it? I'd known Maya and Tyrell were having a tough time. They've cried over it at Christmas, brought it up on beach trips, even hinted at trying everything, but never, not once, did I imagine this was the route they'd take. Or that my wife would volunteer herself without even asking me what I thought. I asked her that. Point blank. You didn't think you should talk to me about this first? She looked genuinely confused. Why? It's my body. My choice. Besides, it doesn't affect you. Doesn't affect me? My wife was about to go through 9 months of hormone changes, morning sickness, exhaustion, doctor's appointments, and emotional chaos, all while we're raising 3 kids, and she thinks that doesn't affect me? I didn't yell. I didn't lose it. I just sat there, stunned. My stomach dropped. My chest felt tight, like someone tied a rope around my ribs and started pulling. I asked her one more time. You already said yes to them? She nodded again, like it was the most noble, selfless thing in the world. She went right back to her phone after that, probably texting Maya about how it's done, or that I took it better than expected. I don't know. I didn't ask. I couldn't even look at her. In that moment, all I could think about was how small I felt. How out of the loop I suddenly was in my own marriage. This wasn't just about the baby. It was about the decision. The way she smiled through it, like it was no big deal. The way they all, her, Maya, Tyrell, just assumed I'd be fine with it. But I wasn't fine. Not even close. And deep down, I think she already knew that. After Vanessa dropped the surrogate bomb on me, I sat in silence for what felt like half an hour, but it was probably just a couple minutes. My brain was trying to play catch-up, but no matter how I ran it through my head, it all came out the same. She had made a decision that affected our marriage, our family, and my sanity, without so much as bringing it up. I said, "It's not about needing permission. It's about respect. It's about the fact that this changes everything. How are we supposed to handle this as a couple when I wasn't even given a seat at the table?" She crossed her arms and leaned back on the couch like she was bracing for a scolding. "I knew you'd react like this," she said, like that somehow made her decision okay. "That's why I didn't bring it up earlier." "So instead, you just skipped the hard part and decided without me?" I asked. "That's real mature." She stood up then, arms still crossed, pacing a little like she needed to move to get her words out faster. "Look, I'm doing something good. Something selfless. Maya's my sister. If you can't understand that, maybe we need to rethink some things." There it was. The unspoken threat, finally spoken. Not directly, but clear as day. If I didn't agree with her plan, then maybe I didn't belong in the picture. She didn't need to say it outright. Her tone, her posture, her whole attitude said it for her. So I said the one thing I knew I had to. I didn't yell, didn't raise my voice. "If you go through with this, we're done." She stopped pacing and looked at me like I'd kicked her dog. "Seriously?" I nodded. "Dead serious. This isn't a minor disagreement. You made a life-altering choice without me. You want to carry their baby, fine. But you won't do it while being my wife." Vanessa scoffed. "Wow, you're really being dramatic." "Maybe," I said, standing up too, "but at least I'm not pretending this isn't a massive betrayal." We didn't talk much after that. She retreated to the guest room that night, not that she ever used it for long. The next couple of days were awkward, quiet. The kids didn't know anything, and I wasn't about to bring them into the mess. I avoided small talk. I slept on the far edge of the bed when we were in it together. We passed each other like strangers, sharing meals without conversation, the air thick with resentment and disbelief. Then, 2 mornings later, she walked into the kitchen holding a little white stick in her hand and announced it like she was telling me the mail had arrived. "I'm pregnant." I didn't respond right away. I finished pouring my coffee, took a sip, set the mug down. Then I walked past her, grabbed the folder I'd prepared the night she made her body, my choice speech, and headed out the door. Later that afternoon, I filed for divorce. She didn't say much when I told her. I think deep down, she expected me to cave, to be stunned, then slowly come around. Maybe she figured I'd warm up to the idea, pitch in, get excited like it was some magical sisterly journey we were all a part of. But that's not how I'm built. I don't forgive that kind of betrayal with a smile and a nod. Vanessa acted shocked, of course. Hurt, even. But she had walked us both to this point. And now, she was going to walk it alone. Vanessa didn't move out. That's the part that made everything worse. I filed the divorce papers, got the ball rolling, made my stance crystal clear, and then we just kept living in the same house like 2 coworkers who hate each other but still have to share a break room. Because of how the law works in our state, we had to be legally separated for 9 full months before the courts would even finalize a divorce. 9 months. You know, the exact length of a pregnancy. The irony wasn't lost on me. So we ended up stuck under the same roof. Same dinner table. Same hallway. Same everything, except now it felt like every room was coated in tension. The kids didn't fully understand what was going on. We hadn't told them yet. We agreed to wait until things were further along. They just knew Mom and Dad weren't talking much, and that Dad suddenly started watching TV in the garage a lot more. Vanessa acted like nothing had changed. That was her first move. She'd still try to talk to me like we were a team. One afternoon she waddled into the living room while I was watching the weather report and said, all casual-like, "Can you run to the store and grab me some pickles and maybe that caramel swirl ice cream?" I didn't even look away from the screen. Not my kid, not my problem. She stood there for a few seconds, lips tight, waiting like she thought I'd change my mind. When I didn't move, she huffed and walked off muttering something under her breath about how I'd never cared anyway. That was just the beginning. It became a pattern. Every other day, she'd ask for something, lift this, grab that, run here, open that. And every time, I said no. Not rudely, just firmly. She made her decision without me. She could live with it without me too. At first, she tried to keep up the facade. She played the part of the strong, empowered woman who didn't need any help. "I've got this," she'd say when she was hauling groceries inside by herself or trying to reach something off the top shelf in the pantry. Then the mood swings started hitting. One morning she was cheerful, humming in the kitchen while slicing apples. That same night she was slamming cabinet doors because I didn't want to watch some baby documentary with her. I was polite, Even told her she could use the TV if she wanted, but that wasn't enough. The crying came next. Full-blown sobbing in the hallway after dinner, loud enough that the kids noticed. She'd sit on the stairs rubbing her belly like a movie character and sniffle dramatically. I stayed out of it. I wasn't going to comfort her. I wasn't going to play the part of the supportive husband when she hadn't treated me like a partner when it mattered. She threw guilt around like candy at a parade. You think this is easy for me? I'm doing this for family. How can you be so cold? I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just reminded her, every time. You made this choice. I wasn't part of it. It became weirdly routine. We were coexisting like two ghosts haunting the same house. I'd wake up early, take the kids to school, work my hours at the lab, handle dinner, dishes, bedtime, all without including her. If she joined the kids at the table, fine. If not, that was fine too. The kids were my priority, not her feelings. There was this moment, I'll never forget it, about 6 weeks in. She was trying to open a jar of pasta sauce and couldn't get the lid off. I was standing near the fridge, getting myself a bottle of water. She held it out to me and said, "Can you open this for me?" My hands are swollen. I looked at the jar, then looked at her. Not my jar, not my problem. She slammed it on the counter, red in the face, and shouted, "You're being cruel, Jordan." I didn't respond, just walked back to the garage. Her silent treatments were the worst. Not because I missed talking to her, I didn't, but because they made the house feel even more like a war zone. She'd stomp around like a teenager, slam doors, avoid eye contact, and then switch it off like a light if the kids were nearby. Always smiling in front of them, always pretending like everything was okay. It made me sick. She kept up appearances for Maya and Tyrell too. They'd come over once a week, all bright smiles and, "How's my little peanut doing?" while Vanessa glowed like some kind of saint. Meanwhile, I was invisible. I'd make myself scarce, retreat to the garage, work on the boat engine, scroll tide charts. Anything but sit at that kitchen table with those three. One night after they left, she said, "You could at least pretend to be supportive in front of them." I turned and said, "They weren't pretending when they left me out of this, were they?" She didn't have a comeback for that. After a while, even her family started noticing the shift. Her mom called one evening and asked if everything was okay. I handed the phone to Vanessa and walked away. She couldn't keep up the act forever, and I wasn't going to do damage control. I became a ghost in my own house. I cooked, I cleaned, I showed up for my kids, but for her, I was done. The emotional connection was gone. The trust had evaporated. And the baby she was carrying? It wasn't mine. I didn't choose it. I didn't want it. So no, I wasn't going to open jars or run errands or listen to her cry in the next room. She made her choice. And I was making mine. Vanessa used to brag about how tight she and Maya were. "We're more than sisters," she'd say. "We're twins. Best friends." And when she agreed to carry Maya and Tyrell's baby, she painted it like a beautiful gift, this heroic act of love and loyalty that only she could give. I wasn't thrilled about it, obviously, but I figured, at the very least, she'd have a whole cheerleading squad backing her up. Turns out, cheerleaders don't stick around when the game gets messy. Not long into the second trimester, Maya had an accident. I didn't get the full story, not that anyone bothered to tell me, but from what I overheard on a phone call, she took a nasty fall on a rock climbing trip, fractured her arm and busted her ankle. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to lay her up for a good while. From that point on, Tyrell became Casper. Just disappeared. I came home from work one evening and Vanessa was sitting on the couch, propped up with a heating pad. She looked tired, irritated. I asked, "Where's Tyrell?" "Thought he was coming by this week to help you with the nursery." She didn't even look up from her phone, just mumbled, "He's with Maya, helping her recover." I nodded slowly. "So Maya gets the husband and the baby now? Cute." Vanessa glared at me but didn't respond. Her whole "I don't need anyone" attitude started crumbling fast. All of a sudden, she was overwhelmed. Everything felt like too much. At least, that's what she kept saying. I was still doing the usual work, taking care of the kids, cooking dinner, laundry, basically being the full-time parent while she lived on the couch. One night, after I'd finished bathing our youngest and putting him to bed, she called out from the hallway, "Can you come help me set up the crib in the guest room?" I wiped my hands on a towel and stared at her like she had 3 heads. "Vanessa," I said, "you can call Tyrell for that." Her eyebrows pinched together. "He's not available. He's staying with Maya. She can't walk yet." I shrugged. "Then maybe wait until he is." She didn't say anything else that night. but I could tell the wheels were turning. Her plan A had gone sideways, and she didn't have a plan B. So she started treating me like one. Every few days, it was a new favor. Can you help me lift the stroller box upstairs? My back is killing me. Just 5 minutes of a massage. Can you drive me to my appointment? And every single time, I told her no. Calm. Straightforward. No yelling. No guilt. Just, not my kid. Not my problem. Sometimes she'd roll her eyes. Sometimes she'd cry. Once, she threw a throw pillow at me and missed by a mile. One day, I came home to find her sitting on the floor in the hallway surrounded by baby stuff, half-built furniture, plastic packaging, random bolts. She looked up at me, red-faced, and said, "This is ridiculous. You're letting me struggle just to prove a point." I leaned against the doorway and said, "No. I'm watching you deal with the consequences of a decision you made without me." That shut her up. She didn't want help from anyone else. That was the thing. Her pride kept her from calling her mom or Maya's other friends. I heard her on the phone with Tyrell once, practically begging him to come by for a few hours. He gave some excuse about work, then hung up quickly. I didn't feel bad. I felt justified. She had painted this picture of solidarity, of sisterhood and family, and how she was doing something noble. But when it came time for the day-to-day struggles, the stuff that actually makes up the hard part, nobody was showing up for her. Except me, technically. I was around. I just wasn't lifting a finger for her. She accused me of being selfish. Multiple times. "You're punishing me," she'd say. "This is cruel. I'm carrying a baby, and you're treating me like garbage." My answer never changed. "You made this choice without me. I told you what would happen." I wasn't being vindictive. I was just holding the line. If I helped her even once, even a little, she'd see it as a crack in the wall. Something to wedge herself back into my life with. And I wasn't about to let that happen. She started guilt-tripping me in front of the kids, too. Not directly, but little comments here and there. It must be nice not to have any responsibilities. Some people just walk away when things get tough. I ignored her every time. The house felt colder somehow. Not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Even when it was quiet, there was this tension just under the surface. The sound of her sighing from the other room. The way she'd bang a drawer closed instead of gently pushing it. The long, dramatic pauses when I walked into the room and she stopped mid-conversation on the phone. This was the dream team, remember? Maya and Tyrell were supposed to be the golden couple, the ones who deserved this miracle. But the second it got inconvenient, they ghosted. And now Vanessa was realizing what it felt like to be left out of a decision, just like she'd done to me. The only difference was, I told her the price ahead of time. And now she was paying it. Vanessa went into labor early on a Thursday morning. I knew because I found a note on the kitchen counter when I got up to make coffee. It was written in a rush, her handwriting messy and uneven. "Going to the hospital. Water broke. Kids are with mom." That was it. No call. No heads up. No. "Jordan, I'm scared. Or can you drive me?" Just a scribbled message in a quiet house. Later that night, my phone rang. It was her. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. I figured maybe she'd had the baby and wanted to let me know it was over. When I picked up, she was crying. Not loud sobbing, but that kind of shaky, breathless whimpering people do when they're too tired to yell anymore. "I don't want to do this alone," she said. Her voice cracked. She sounded worn out, scared even. I didn't say much at first. Just stood there in the garage holding the phone, staring at the shelves where I kept old paint cans and engine oil. Then I said calmly, "Call Tyrell. He's the one who got you into this." There was silence on the other end. Then she whispered, "He didn't come." I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Not surprised. I didn't ask how the birth went, or if the baby was okay. I didn't ask if she was in pain, or if anyone was there with her. Because at that point, I just didn't have it in me. She'd made her choice. And this was part of it. I told her I hoped everything was fine, then said I had to go. She didn't argue. A few days later, she came home. She walked in carrying the baby carrier like it weighed more than a toolbox, her hospital bag slung over one shoulder, eyes puffy and exhausted. I was sitting at the dining room table helping our middle kid with his math homework. She didn't say hi, just shuffled past us and went straight to the guest room, where she'd set up the crib months ago. I didn't follow her. From that point on, the house became a battleground, not with yelling or fights, but with silence, stares, and little traps. The bottles started showing up first, left in the kitchen sink, unwashed. Then diapers not used, thankfully, but clean ones left on the coffee table, stacked beside burp cloths and wipes. Baby clothes folded neatly on the armrest of the recliner I used to watch the news in. A pacifier on the bathroom counter. She wanted me to notice, acknowledge, engage, but I didn't. I stepped over the mess like it wasn't even there. Walked around the baby gear like it was a puddle of something sticky. If she left something on the couch, I moved to the floor. If she took over the bathroom with baby stuff, I used the one in the garage. She wanted me to crack. Wanted me to look at the baby, ask its name, maybe even hold her. I didn't. Every now and then, I'd find her standing in the hallway rocking the baby and shooting glances my way, like she was hoping to catch a flicker of emotion. But there wasn't any left for her. At 3 a.m. one night, she knocked on my door. Not loud, just soft, hesitant. I was awake anyway. Couldn't get much rest with a newborn crying through the walls. I opened the door just enough to see her, still in that faded gray bathrobe she used to wear when she was pregnant with our first. She looked pale and drained, eyes hollow, hair tied up in a messy knot. "Please," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Just hold her for a bit. I need to rest. Just for a few minutes." I shook my head. Nope. She stared at me like I'd just told her the world was ending. Her lip trembled, and for a second, I thought she might cry right there on the carpet. "You don't even care, do you?" she said. "I care about my kids," I replied. "The ones we had together. That baby? That's not my responsibility." She turned away without another word. I closed the door and went back to lying on the bed staring at the ceiling, counting how many hours until I had to be up for work. The days after that weren't any better. She'd leave the baby in the living room and vanish into another part of the house like it was my job to step in. Once I found the infant in the bassinet near the kitchen table, just wiggling and cooing while Vanessa was upstairs folding towels. I walked right past. She started muttering under her breath when I came into rooms. "Unbelievable. Heartless. I don't even know who you are." But I wasn't playing along. This wasn't my show. I didn't ask for any of it. And every time she tried to drag me in, with crying, with guilt, with strategically placed baby gear, I reminded myself of one thing. She made this choice without me, and I had every right to keep it that way. It happened on a Sunday night. I was in the garage fixing a busted latch on one of the kids' fishing tackle boxes. I'd spent the afternoon mowing the lawn, doing laundry, and grilling burgers for dinner. The usual. Vanessa had been quiet all day, which was fine by me. She stayed holed up in the guest room with the baby, occasionally pacing through the kitchen like a ghost. We barely said 2 words to each other. Then she snapped. She stormed into the garage without knocking, barefoot, holding the baby in one arm like a shield and pointing at me with the other. Her face was flushed, her hair a mess, and her voice was sharp enough to cut drywall. "You're still my husband," she yelled. I didn't even look up at first. Just kept working the screwdriver into the hinge. When I finished tightening the bolt, I stood up slowly, wiped my hands on a rag, and finally looked her in the eye. "No, Vanessa," I said. "Not in any way that matters." She blinked like I'd slapped her. "You're a heartless monster," she snapped. "Cool," I said, brushing past her. "I can live with that." That was it. That was the moment she knew she couldn't win this one. She started crying, the baby started fussing, and she stomped back into the house. For the next hour, she was slamming drawers, dragging bags down the hallway, clanking things into the trunk of her car. Not a word to me. Just a storm in the hallway, furious and loud. Then, just after 9, she walked out the front door, baby carrier in one hand and diaper bag slung over her shoulder. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't leave a note. She just left. The silence after she was gone was unreal. For the first time in months, the house felt still. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock in the living room. I sat down on the couch, turned on the news, and ate a bowl of cereal without hearing anyone complain about the smell of milk or the volume of the TV. 3 days passed. 3 beautiful, quiet, uninterrupted days. No crying baby. No guilt tripping. No mood swings or whispered insults in the hallway. The kids were calm. I got through bedtime stories without distractions. I even slept better. No pacing upstairs. No midnight knocks on my door. Then the call started. First her mom. I let it ring. Then her sister. Then Tyrell. They all left voicemails. Her mom's voice was dripping with disappointment. "Jordan, she's overwhelmed. You have to step up and help her. Be a man." Her sister Maya's message was pure guilt. "I can't believe you're abandoning her like this. She gave us a miracle, and now you're just walking away." Tyrell's call was more casual, like he was doing damage control. "Hey man, just checking in. Vanessa said things are tough. Maybe you guys can talk? Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. I didn't return any of them. The message from all of them was the same. Help her. Do the right thing. But here's the thing. The right thing would have been not betraying me in the first place. The right thing would have been sitting down and talking to me before signing her body and our marriage away. They wanted me to swoop in and fix everything. Pretend none of it happened. Be the good guy. The dependable husband. The emotional punching bag. Not this time. I didn't know Vanessa anything. I made it clear from the start that if she went through with this, she'd be doing it without me. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't trying to manipulate her. I was honest. And now that I was following through, they were acting like I was the villain. It was kind of funny, actually. Everyone calling and texting, panicking about Vanessa, like she was some fragile little dove. She was the one who played the hero. She wanted all the praise, the admiration, the Gold Star Sister Award. But when things got hard, poof, Maya couldn't even call me herself. And now they expected me, the one they didn't think was important enough to include, to come in and save the day? No chance. I spent those 3 days getting the house back in order. I cleaned out the fridge, finally replaced that busted closet door, took the kids to the park. They didn't ask too many questions. I kept it simple. Mom was staying with Grandma for a bit. That was enough for now. The silence was better than I imagined. Peaceful. Real. And I wasn't about to give that up again. Vanessa doesn't like losing. Never has. I think in her mind, she truly believed I'd crack eventually. That I'd see the baby and melt. That I'd fall back into old habits. The dependable husband. The fixer. The guy who never let her fall no matter how hard she pushed him. But I didn't. I stayed firm. And that drove her nuts. When she realized I wasn't crawling back, she went nuclear. Claimed abandonment. Asked the court for joint custody of the kids and spousal support. Said she couldn't work because she was still recovering from a difficult pregnancy and needed time to rebuild her life. Her lawyer came out swinging like they had a slam dunk case, painting her as a single mom who had been left behind during the hardest time of her life. I wasn't surprised. I knew it was coming. The only thing I didn't know was how far she'd go to twist the story. She made it sound like I just up and walked away. Like she was some poor woman carrying the weight of the world while I lived carefree and heartless. She told the court I left her with a newborn and refused to help. She said I was cold, distant, emotionally unavailable. Claimed I shut her out when she needed me the most. None of it stuck. Because we had receipts. My lawyer came prepared. And I mean prepared. We had texts, voicemails, emails, calendar logs, you name it. Every time I told her, I'm not supporting this. Every time she ignored my warnings. Every message where she made it clear she was going ahead with the surrogacy no matter what. And then there was the crown jewel. The message where she said, "It's my body, my choice. I don't need your permission." That line became a headline. Because once she started demanding I take care of the baby, the judge wanted to know why I hadn't. That's when my lawyer dropped the quote and followed it with, "My body, my choice. Her consequences, not his problem." The courtroom went silent. Vanessa shifted in her seat. I saw the panic start to rise behind her eyes. That line she'd used like a shield had come back around and smacked her in the face. She tried to keep her composure, but her voice cracked when she was questioned. Her story didn't hold. Her reasoning fell apart. She kept trying to drag the baby into everything, as if being a surrogate had earned her special treatment. But the court didn't care about what she did for her sister. The court cared about what kind of parent she was being to the 3 kids we had. And the evidence didn't lie. We showed that I'd been the one getting them ready for school, making meals, helping with homework, handling doctor's appointments, bedtime routines, and everything in between. That I'd been the constant while she floated between martyrdom and meltdown. That she prioritized the pregnancy over our family, even after being told exactly what it would cost. The judge saw it clearly. I was awarded full custody of our 3 kids. Vanessa got visitation, scheduled, supervised at first, and reviewed after 6 months. No spousal support. No extra funds. No room to twist anything. When the verdict was read, she broke. She didn't shout or throw a fit. She just crumpled into herself, hands over her face, trying to keep it together. I watched her shoulders shake. The same woman who once stood tall in our living room and told me she didn't need my approval was now crying into her palms in front of a judge. And me? I felt nothing. Not anger. Not triumph. Not guilt. Just nothing. Because I had already mourned what we were. I had already buried the trust, the partnership, the love. It had all been burned down the moment she handed herself over to someone else's dream without even asking me if I wanted to be a part of it. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt like I could breathe again. The paperwork was done. The custody settled. The storm had passed. All that was left now was picking up the pieces and building a future that didn't include Vanessa. After all the shouting behind closed doors and crying in courtrooms, after the decisions were stamped and custody was granted, Vanessa tried one more time. It was maybe 2 weeks later. I'd just come back from picking the kids up from school. We were in the kitchen, and they were fighting over who got the last granola bar. I was halfway through making a grocery list when she knocked on the front door. I didn't expect to see her standing there. She looked worn out. Eyes tired. Hair brushed but not styled. No makeup. Just her and that look she always wore when she was about to ask for something she knew I didn't want to give. I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. She cleared her throat, shifted her weight, and said, "I still love you." I looked her right in the eye and told her the truth. "You love being Maya's hero more." She didn't deny it, didn't argue, just looked down at the steps and nodded like I just confirmed something she'd known deep down all along. Then she turned around, walked back to her car, and drove away. Now she's out. For real this time. The kids are with me. Their routines are back to normal. They're laughing more, asking questions again, sleeping better. We've fallen into a rhythm: school, dinner, homework, cartoons before bed. On weekends, I fire up the old outboard and take them out sailing. Just a few hours on the water, sun on their faces, the breeze in their hair. Sometimes we drop anchor and fish. Other times, we don't even cast a line. Just drift. Work's been steady. I'm back in the water doing reef assessments, documenting coral changes, keeping an eye on the coastline like I always used to. There's something about it, floating above a reef, camera in hand, light dancing through the water, that puts my mind at ease in a way nothing else can. Reef photography isn't glamorous, but it's mine. And after the chaos of the past year, that means something. The house is quiet now. Not silent in a heavy way, just quiet in the kind of way where you can hear yourself think. There are moments I still wonder what would have happened if she had just talked to me. If she'd come to me like a partner instead of dropping the news like a surprise gift I didn't ask for. But then I remember how easily she lied. How quickly she picked her sister over me. How she told herself it was for love, for family, for a cause. And how, even after the damage was done, she still expected me to help her pick up the pieces. She was beautiful, no doubt about that. But she was a liar. She made her choices, not just one mistake, but a long string of selfish decisions dressed up as kindness. And through it all, I wasn't a husband or a partner. I was a background character in her grand sacrifice story. A footnote. A prop. Until I walked off the stage. Now, it's just me and the kids. And that's enough. Share your thoughts in the comments. If your partner made a huge decision without you, something that changed your family, would you forgive them? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.